Hi, everybody. Ahla wa sahla بالجميع. Welcome to Psychic Militancy. My name is Lara Shiha. So I'm doing something slightly different this time. Before we start, of course, please do all the things that help me continue to do this and invite the people that I would love to share with you. If you could subscribe, like, send it to comrades. If you want to become a patron, you can join us at patreon.com/psychic militancy. That helps me sustain this. It helps me continue to bring content to you. And also you get exclusive releases beforehand. Like this episode, for example, will be released in audio form prior to it being released publicly to everybody who's a patron. But let me get back to why this is slightly different. So my guest today is Dr. Rabab Abdulhadi, and I'm so excited for you all to listen to the wonderful conversation that I got to have with her. So deep, so rich. Rabab has an incredible history of struggle and organizing, in addition to the wonderful pedagogical work that she does and the teaching that she does still to this day, despite Zionist aggressions against her. But a little snafu happened. So we started the conversation. I was asking her to introduce herself. And then about 6 or 7 minutes in, I realized we weren't recording. I'm not going to get into finger pointing here with my producer, Sina, about whose fault that was. But it happened. So here we are. We're rolling with the punches, and we're going to try to bring it together. Now, most of the interview is still here, but I'm re-recording this introduction just so that you all have a sense of who Rabab is, and then we'll move straight into when I caught the fact that we weren't recording. One of the things I started with is asking Rabab to locate herself, who she is. She also shared with us that her family lived in Nablus, and then she later goes to talk about what historic villages in Palestine, her family, her father and her mother were expelled from in 1948 with the Zionist aggression, and then later the making of the genocidal apartheid state that is now known as Israel. So I'm going to start off with an introduction to Rabab, and then we're just going to kick it over immediately to the actual interview itself. This feels really important for me just to locate her, to give her her due, to really set up the stage for why she's somebody that I really wanted to bring onto the show. So Dr. Rabab Abdulhadi is the founding director and senior scholar of Arab and Muslim ethnicities and diaspora studies program at San Francisco State University. It's the first of its kind in the world, and she's the principal investigator of teaching Palestine, pedagogical praxis, and indivisibility of justice. And we get into this in the show too. Dr. Abdulhadi has been recognized with scholarly and community honors and awards most recently, and I was there, and it was so wonderful to see her accept this, the Hala Salam Maqsood Life Achievement Award of the Arab American Anti-Discrimination Committee at the ADC's 45th anniversary in Detroit this past September 2025. She's also been the recipient of the Angela Davis Award for Public Scholarship by the American Studies Association, and so many other awards that we could continue to list out. But I want you to listen to her talk about her experiences and see that this is somebody who has so many awards, but the way that she talks about her coming into organizing is a communal process. So without further ado here, I mean, there's so much more I could say about Rabab, but I want you to hear it in her own words. And I'm going to pass it over and sort of frame where we start. So I had asked Rabab to situate herself. I gave you a little bit of that right now in terms of where she comes from, what her academic background is, what her activist chops are. And then I asked her, what are the ways in which she has come to think about or practice psychic militancy. So Rabab is somebody who has been under massive and global, and when I say that, I am not being hyperbolic, global Zionist smear campaigns, and she's persisted, and she keeps her eyes on the prize, and that is liberation. So I was very interested in thinking with her and thinking alongside you all about what are the ways in which people come to this position, to this sort of unbending position of psychic militancy. And there are many ways in which we might engage in these things on a daily basis, but we don't really call them that. We don't say, I am doing psychic militancy. So I was very interested in hearing from her experiences throughout her life, certainly growing up. Like, what is it that helps somebody get to this place where they feel like I'm not going to make compromises and I'm going to commit myself to the struggle, despite enticements, despite seduction, despite the ways that we are pulled into make concessions. Rabab is somebody who I experience as not making concessions and then staying committed to the cause, irrespective of the pressures put upon her. What I was really interested in also was kind of defying this narrative that she's just somebody who's been under Zionist aggression, and that's why she takes these positions. She's somebody who's done this for a very long time. So where we jump into it is she's been answering it, and she's sort of giving me the background of how this type of discipline, this political discipline, really emerges from being in a family environment, in a community environment, whether it's with her cousins or her own family or her mother, and certainly, as you will hear, from women fidaiye who are engaged in the struggle, and how everything is really related to that. So that's where we jump in. And she had said something like, nobody is just born. And that way, I believe that's the part that didn't make it into this video. But she says, nobody is just born, meaning that any position we find ourselves in, particularly politically, is one in which we are reared through a communal process and alongside comrades who have been doing this for a longer time, whether they're mentors or people on the ground, fidaiyin, whomever they may be. So that's where we're going to drop into right now. And I hope you really enjoy this episode. Remember to like it and share. Thank you so much.
You just learn, okay? And with the Israeli occupation, the same thing. You do what your elders do, whether it's your parents or your uncles or your aunts or elders in the community, in the neighborhood that your parents trusted. It's not just anybody. You don't listen to anybody. There's certain people you just don't listen to. You ignore. You're polite, but you ignore. So this is sort of the things that's kind of no. When the occupation started in '67, there were a long period of curfew. So we couldn't go anywhere. But then when we were occupied, something happened that we say in the West Bank, for example, that Palestinians opened up to each other. So the Palestinians in the 48 and we in the West Bank got to connect with each other. It's not that we were happy with it, but we connected with the other parts of Palestine there. And we connected also with Gaza because we couldn't see Gaza before. We could go to Jordan, we could see Palestinians in refugee camps, we could see in Lebanon, but we couldn't go to the other parts of Palestine. So, and sometimes people will say, "Man fathat ad-dunya ala ba'd," but nobody was talking about accepting the occupation. It was that we were reunifying with our siblings across the borders. So that's when I remember that we started learning more and more about the poetry of Palestinians in the 48. We were packed in the car with my parents, and they took us to see the lands we lost in 48. And I know that always my dad used to say, "Zar'in, Zar'in, Zar'in." So they took us to see the land Zar'in, which doesn't exist. Actually, I think in 1950, settlers, Haganah, the Israeli militias at the time, which became the army after 48, took over and displaced 11,000 Palestinians from that village. Zar'in was where my dad's land is. And my mom's, who comes from Anabtatul Karim, a lot of that land has already been lost. There wasn't there. And her father has already sold a lot to other Palestinians to buy guns for the 1936-39 revolution. So, I mean, like that, but my dad was taking us, and I remember that we did not buy a single drink, juice, from in the 48. So we will fill the car up in Qalqilia, which the gas comes from Israeli, refineries, but no, not a single ship, nothing once we cross. So we buy from the Palestinians who are getting it from Israel. But so this boycott thing is that no way, nothing enters. Like my mom was really, as we say in Arabic, hambaliya. No, not allowed at all. So this is something for us we don't do. We don't engage, we don't speak, we don't talk, nothing. No normalization, no recognition that we are colonized and occupied. So this is in a state of mind. These are all, but kind of like other things. And the other thing is that my parents in particular, and I think like around the family too, because all of the young women in the family, we were all treated. Nobody was treated. The boys were not treated better than us. We could speak up. We could talk. Nobody would say to us, "Hush, you're a girl" or something. No, no. Like, who are you? No, nobody would. So we also had this sense that nobody was more equal than us. Like nobody can talk to us. Nobody can shut us up. And so this whole there wasn't like gender inferiority. There wasn't, of course, inferiority from the Zionists. No way, no way, no way. And there was no inferiority from anybody else. So this kind of like, what do you want to call it, feminism, whatever, not definitely not Western, but like nobody can tell us anything. But of course, not everybody in the society thought about that kind of. I was good in school. I liked school. I was very interested and participated in protests in underground, like no underground, not really. I mean, we used to get the newspaper of the Communist Party, and a friend of mine and I copy, put them on the wallpaper, the news wallpaper, to see if there are other communists in the school, so we can identify each other. It didn't happen, but we were doing it. We'll go to, when we were even younger, in elementary school, we used to go to demonstrations, throw stones at the boys' school so they would come up, and we will protest with each other. We go, my friend, her mother was a close relative of my mom. So when we go afterwards, we're late. And my mom said, "Where did you go?" And we said, "No, we're just coming around." She said, "No, your friends came home earlier," because she was always really watching our movies. "Oh no, we went to demonstration." "You can't be going there. They will arrest you. They will do that." And one time we actually we got recruited by some Fidaiyin, freedom fighters, and they told us we need to jump underneath the jeeps, slash the tires, and so on. We were afraid, but we were also like excited. But we also didn't want to say no, because it would have been very like coward to do so. And so when we come, my mom also asked us, put us in the dining room, and started interrogating us. And of course, we confessed. And so she said, "You need to go and tell them you're not going to do it." And we said, "Well, no." I mean, we were more afraid of them than my mom. That, they were like, "How could we tell them no?" And she said, "You need to go and tell them." And we said, they don't know us. She said, "No, you made a promise. You have to go tell them." So we had to go the next day and tell them that we are not going. We're sorry, we're not going to go with you, to join you. And they said, "Why?" We said, "Mama told us." I mean, this was such an embarrassing and infantile thing, but we had to tell them, and we didn't participate. I mean, we supported the Fidaiyin. We were looking upward to them. We wanted to be like them. Definitely, the Layla Khalid was a huge icon, but also the Layla Khalid was later on. But we also had all these women in Nablus, in particular, who were arrested, and they were all Fidaiyat, and they were put in prison. They were tortured. They became legends in the Palestinian movement, and actually until now I know them really well. They became part of the boycott movement. And when I was the women's boycott, they have a very big movement boycott in Palestine. And when I was harassed and sued and so on by the Zionists, they actually did the whole boycott event in my honor, which I was that was the best thing that they could do. It was just so nice. In any case, so I was just really always gravitating towards political activities and studying. I wasn't really interested in boys. I thought this all stuff was very silly. I thought it was like immature, silly, stupid. I used to read like novels. I used to read everything in the library. My mom gave me a library card when I was 8 years old. And Nablus Municipal Library was very, very rich, had so much. I mean, the librarian, and I haven't been back to Palestine since I began to remember these memories, and I wanted to go look for the librarian. But so I read everything that was available. Just I'll go check it out, and there was no problem. There was, my parents were very, very regimented about where do we go, how many times we go. If we are able, we couldn't tell our friends we're going to go to the movies before we went and asked permission. If we said we're going to go before we asked permission from my parents, then we couldn't go. We have to ask permission first. I mean, there was like really, really strict in that. But the library, not a problem. I mean, it's okay. So yeah, so they were. So I read a lot. That wasn't the problem. I got a lot of nurturing in political consciousness from my cousins. All my cousins of my aunt who lived in Ramallah, they were all involved in all the Palestinian different factions, all the leftist factions. Nobody ever went in the centrist or, like right. Or so they were always anti-colonialists, anti-imperialists, socialists, okay, Marxists. And so they different groups of the PLO. And so they were like, I was always sitting there, and my aunt was a very big leader of the Palestinian movement. So every time I go in the summer, go spend 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and so on, I will be sitting in the living room and I hear who's who in the Palestinian movement. They will come, they're sitting there meeting, and I sit there, and I didn't sit there because I had nowhere else to go, but I really was very interesting. So I'm sitting there, I'm hearing, and she never even said to me, Rabab, go make coffee or something, She always had young women who are working with her or volunteers or something, or some of her friends will get up and go make coffee, or she would, but nobody would allow her to do it because she was older, and her. So all of this stuff allowed me to become very, very involved in organizing, and they were all, my family was very much involved. So it was, I think for majority of the Palestinians, this is the only way to do it. I think in order not to get involved, you have to be prevented from getting involved.
It was modeled. It was modeled for you. So, Rabab, I love that you started off by saying people are not just born. And I love that, because what you then described to us is a series of relational experiences that you've had with your family, with comrades, with fidaiyin, with cousins, around tables, in the home space. Like, these are some of them, like some of us, I think, feel like some of these things have to happen in organizing spaces that we have in our mind exactly what they look like. And in fact, what you instead say is that this is a daily political commitment. And this is the way that I think about our necessity to think about psychological processes, particularly psychic militancy, as a daily political commitment. And sometimes we don't recognize that's what we're doing, but I think, you're describing it as you look backwards. I hear you describing that. And I, because I'm aware of your work, and I want to get into this, of course, can see kind of the seedlings of some of the things that you have come to then do. Like, I've heard you talk about the indivisibility of justice, for example. And then I think about the ways in which you describe what you were, in community around from very early on, and recognize that the fight was the fight for Palestine, of course. It was always about the liberation of Palestine. Our struggle runs through Quds, right? But also never forgetting that our struggle is actually against larger structures of oppression, which includes imperialism, which includes colonialism, which includes patriarchy, all the ways in which this comes together. So I'm just so struck by that piece of it, and by the piece of a necessary type of discipline that comes with that. So I'm wondering if you could say a little more about how that has, helped guide you, and then where these beginnings then turn into the trajectory that you've taken over the years.
Yeah. I think maybe I want to go start a little bit about the way I also like to describe myself, as opposed to people, who describes you, has to do with the ways that people only focus on you as an individual. And so people say, what made you the way you are, as unique among, and I say, no, this. Do you know how when do I start counting how many Palestinian women and Palestinian men and children have sacrificed in order for you to not exceptionalize the experience of one person you saw, because you would like to have one hero, because this is the American way. This is kind of like the American hegemonic cultural way, that this is an experience that join. Now, how much people participate and how much people don't participate has also to do with people's experiences with decisions as well. And I think this is what you're talking about, the psychic militancy. Maybe this is that you get confronted with decisions every single time. What are you going to do? Which way you're going to go? When you decide to do something, what are you going to lose? because you lose something. When people say people have nothing to lose, that's not true. Everybody has something to lose. The Fidai has something to lose. The people who are going to go to prison have something to lose. People who are able to leave Gaza and stay have something to lose. Don't tell me people have nothing to lose as if their life is cheap. It is different than revolutionaries say they having to lose but their chains. That's very different. That's a very, very different way. It's a short thing to say to make people understand what you're talking what you're talking about, the freedom or the integrity. But everybody has some, and you think every single time, if you do something like this, what does this really mean about getting implicated into more things in organizing and struggling towards justice, towards freedom, towards liberation, or actually staying away from it? And it's actually one of the harder things too sometimes, is what does it mean when you also get isolated from comrades and friends and so on, who also do not like that you are sacrificing and who would like you to sacrifice less, because if you sacrifice more, maybe it implicates them and makes them sacrifice more, because if they don't look like they're doing enough. So they would like you to do less, because if you do less, or for example, I will go back to Nablus, that if Samir, my mother, Allah yarhamha, if she's always boycotting, then the other women that she interacts with also have to boycott, and they have to make sure that they hide the Israeli Jews and whatever and so on, or not talk about it in al-istaqbalat al-azayat, when they have visits and when they have mornings, because she's going, and she never ever held her tongue. This is the thing. It's like they're different people. Other women will not say anything. They don't like it, but they don't say anything. But my mom was blunt, and she knew about it. She said that sometimes I can't do it, and like she had these debates with the friends, with my father, with other people. It's like, maybe not this time, let it be, and so on. She said, I shouldn't have said it, but I couldn't, and she knew that. But this is some of the things, is that you people don't want you to do that because it exposes what they are. Sometimes I didn't say it because, and I'm saying, sometimes I actually decide not to say something, not because I really, honestly, I don't really care about the people who actually know that they could do something and it doesn't affect them. And a lot of academics who say, oh, because of the cause, and they might not get tenured and so on. I'm like, yeah, and people might not die. So you're talking about you're getting tenured, people lose more. So
Right.
I cannot engage in this and be sympathetic to you when people are sacrificing more and dying in order for you to sign something and put your name on the CV. I have a very hard time doing that. Okay, very hard time. I don't say, but it's just, for me, it's registered. But I do. But if there is the movement decides something, I don't jump and be the what do you call it? What we say in Arabic, al-irba'a b'nus al-jum'ah. You have to say that like Wednesday in the middle of the,
Yes.
of the week, because you're going to be the hero when people are not ready. If the group around you is not ready to conduct a various battle, I'm not going to jump ahead. I'll wait with other people first, because I may be wrong, because that might not be the timing. Let's figure out what the collective wants and so on. And maybe the collective is not ready. And what's the point of actually you jumping ahead and sacrificing everybody when we can wait a little bit and do it better? So, I mean, that's something that...
There's something so important about what you're saying, that you're immediately taking this out of the realm of the unconscious and saying this is a conscious political project and process that you commit to. This is where you're sort of talking about choice, that we're always confronted. Like, it's not like we're free of the contradictions of the world we live in, or that there's shaming involved in it, but it is about constantly recognizing that these are the pressures upon us, being honest about taking stock of them, recognizing that we might act as individuals, but that is always in service of the larger cause, and that there is always risk involved. I agree with you. I think there's ways in which, somebody at that talk I gave recently was like, what do you mean by militant? And there are many ways we can think about that. But for me, also, the militant is intimately aware with the risks that are involved with holding the line. And we do it anyway, because there's a larger cause we feel beholden to, and that cause has a coherence and an actual material impact. Like, this is not abstract, what we're talking about.
And I think also is that sometimes actually you do need to be the first one, because it's in everybody's mind. And people are thinking, do I do it? Do I not do it? And sometimes the cost is worth that you do it first. So I'll tell you something, that when the president of San Francisco State, Les Wang, wrote a letter saying Zionists are welcome, that made me flip. What do you mean Zionists are welcome? No, Zionists are not welcome. No, it's not Zionists can organize what is this liberal stuff. No, they're not. Anti-Zionists, yes, you want to say this? And I met with him at the time, with the dean, and I said, why don't you write and says Nazis are welcome, KKK are welcome? Go ahead, write that, because it's the same thing. You should, you what is it too much? I said, no, it's the same thing. Go ahead and write it then. This is what Zionism is. There is no special. Don't tell me there is something special. So I wrote that letter, and I knew I'm writing it, and I wrote it very fast, by the way. I had 10 minutes, and I said, you know what, let me write it right now before anybody starts saying this is wonderful and so on, to just put it out there. And whatever people do, it's my right. I mean, it is in the liberal spaces, it's my right to have my freedom of expression. I'm going to write it. Of course, they're going to use it differently, because I'm not supposed to have freedom of speech, but the Zionists can. But let's test it. And they don't have. And I'm going to say this is genocidal, this is racism, this is killing, this is distinguishing between different people. This was, if I didn't say it, then, and I can't say it, okay? And okay, what are they going to do? They're going to continue harassing me and so on, but they're harassing us with killing, so I thought this was really important, because it will make it an issue to be discussed if I say so. And if I don't say so, the Palestinian, I would say the only, even if there are people, other adjuncting or whatever, I am known as the Palestinian professor, that they brought me and hired me to do this job. And if I don't say it, I'm not even worth whatever I'm doing. Okay, so there are certain things it's really important to say so. And I'm not going to go and basically dress people, or who, for instance, after October 7, came out with these disgusting statements and condemned Palestinians, heinous, incredible, atrocious, terroristic. I find that utterly internalized colonial mentality. There is no way, and I know there was a lot of isolation. I know there is a lot of kind of like sidelining. I don't associate. Fine, that's okay. That's okay. Palestine doesn't get a lot of rewards and doesn't get invited to the cocktail parties and the whining and dining. We don't need that. We don't need that. We are conducting a struggle to survive for a people, and we've survived over 100 years. You want to go do it? Go ahead. And you would like to dance and chime with the colors and so on. That's fine. Don't dress you. I don't like at all what you've done, and I find it terrible. This is what you want to do, and you will get rewarded, I know, and you will get invited. That's fine. But there is no way I am going to condemn people who are being genocide, sacrificing themselves for Palestine. So sometimes you have to. Other times people say, okay, maybe we shouldn't do this demonstration. Maybe we shouldn't do this stuff. It's fine. It's not a big deal, because at one point it will come up. And sometimes youth raise a slogan that maybe other people don't like to raise. It's fine. Let them do it. I will never police them. And I will never. I mean, I was sued because Palestinian students at San Francisco State did things. I wasn't even signed up at their advisor. You know that, right? I was sued for 18 months. I wasn't their advisor. The person who was signed as their advisor never, ever stepped up courageously to say, I'm their advisor.
Wow. No, I didn't know that part.
Yeah, I was sued by lawfare. I was the only professor who was sued for 18 months. And I wasn't even aware that the students were going to go disrupt the Zionist so-called mayor of occupied Jerusalem. I had no idea. And I'm sure they didn't tell me. I mean, the students used to tell me. They didn't tell me because probably they thought I would tell them, don't do it this way or don't do it or whatever. And so I had no idea. I was teaching a class when they were doing it. And I heard afterwards. And then I asked, some of my advisors, lawyers, and so on, and they said, don't say now. It will have a backfire and so on. I said, okay. And their advisor, who was on the books, who was always acting as if he is the most radical person, so on, did not say once that he was actually the one who's registered on the book, and that throughout the law, the whole lawsuit, and throughout all the attacks against me, never said so. And afterwards came in, and he said he still claims that he is very revolutionary, and because this is what I was told, that this is better for us to win the lawsuit, not to say anything. It cost me a lot. It cost me a lot because throughout that lawsuit, there were some people supporting me, but a lot of people would not donate. A lot of people stayed away. A lot of people were afraid that they will be attacked if they are associated with me. Even some people who donated to cash, to some, until it got to the lawyers. But of course, when we won, everybody claimed that they were part of it. It's fine. It's okay. Because the thing is that if you think of it as yourself individually, it affects you. You internalize it. But it's not individually. It's for the cause. It's for Palestine. It makes us win, and so on. It's okay. You made the decision to be part of the struggle. You work collectively with other people. If this is better for other people, you do. And once in a while, you do things on your own, even if people don't agree, and say to you, okay, you know what, this is not so wise. And you say, thank you so much. I love you, but this time I'm not going to toe the line, and I'm not going to be polite, and I'm not going to behave in a cautious way, and so on. Because I believe at this point, the struggle needs it. You may not be right sometimes, but
but sometimes you need to. This is part of what you're saying, is sometimes you need to make that decision and take that chance. Yeah. I mean, part of what you're saying is so important, is that I often, as somebody who also has been under attack, and certainly not at the same rate or duration as you have, but one of the things that was really stood out to me was that these systems and these organizations and these AstroTurf organizations and Zionist aggression needs to create an individual. And what I realized was it's containing this within an individual, because it's much easier for people to understand or think you are being individually attacked. And one of the things that I realized very early on was this is a counterinsurgent containing mechanism. That doesn't mean you don't register that there is one person being attacked, and in your case also paying high prices for this career-wise, monetarily, that is real. But that individual also would not exist if it weren't for the cause that they were representing. And this is the thing for me to continuously come back to the structural piece, to the larger cause, which is part of what I hear you saying. And maybe this is a good place for us to talk about some of the ways in which you have always been engaged in the cause, and in very structured ways, like that actually gets to your point of not being an individual. So, you spent a lot of time organizing. You were part of the General Union of Palestine Students. You were part of the Union of Palestine Women's Associations in North America. Actually, I think you were a co-founder, not just part, right? And the Committee for a Democratic Palestine. And this is part of it. I mean, maybe your ideas about not being an individual emerge precisely because you have always been, as you told us, in the realm of communal processing and working through. But I'd love folks to know how these organizations, especially, were internationalist in nature, how the fight for interconnectedness of struggle runs through them and can get you at this point. As I hear you speaking, these ideas also come from that foundation that I always connect you with, right? It's not this moment only, it's a series of moments of these larger struggles that you've always been engaged in, particularly with women and other comrades throughout the global South and throughout the world, really.
Yeah, I think, okay, so I mean, some of them, I was at the founding conference for the General Union of Palestine Students in the US. It started only in 1978. Before that, there was a very long history of the Organization of Arab Students, which was started before I came. I was only maybe for a year or so involved with it, with its chapter at University of Wisconsin Madison. And I was elected as the president of the Arab Student Union. And I didn't really know at the time, and I thought it was ridiculous. I just came to medicine, but all the people who were pushing me, it turns out that there was one guy, Libyan, who was running for it, and they wanted me to run for it because there was a big rift within the organization of Arab students. And Libyans were on one side. There was a lot of issues. This is a very, very rich organization. And it was all the people who were part of it were all from the oppositional movements in the Arab world, meaning this is some people did not even use their own names. They asked Palestinians who were burned, like some people like we're already known who we are, and so we can up and read their statements because they couldn't read the state. That's just like now some people read statements from Palestinian students and so on. And so the Union of Palestine students started in the US in '78, but I was very active in GOBS when I was in the Soviet Union. I studied in the Soviet Union in Leningrad, and I was active because I was always wanting to be active. In Palestine, there is no GOBS. There is no GOBS at all. There are students in schools, and now there is much more developed student organizing. But when I was there, and I don't even remember, I was in Bir Zayt. I studied in Bir Zayt in summer school. I studied in Bir Zayt for English to improve my English. I went and taught at Bir Zayt as a visiting professor with the Institute for Women's Studies. It was like really very close to me, Bir Zayt. And actually also Al-Najah wasn't really a full university as it became later on. And then I definitely got involved with it as in my own home, hometown. And also they were really, really very supportive and welcomed me. And, so I definitely with all Palestinian universities, but in Bir Zayt, I band not with the faculty. They had the faculty and staff, but when I was in summer school, I band with the faculty, with not with the faculty, with the staff cafeteria. They were on a strike, so I band with them in the summer school, and worked with them. And then I think she was married to the president of the university. And then she called my dad. My dad was on the board of trustees, and she told him, Mr. Abdulhadi, it's better if Rabab doesn't come in the fall. So I couldn't go back to Wirzet. So I was sent to the US to study. I really wanted to. Yeah. She's like, because I was already, and I said, I mean, they were on strike. I was with them. This is what, and also this is some of the stuff I really learned in the Soviet Union, because I was going to all the classes I was learning. And in the Soviet Union, I joined the GOPS and I went to, all of this. And I wasn't really involved with any left, but I gravitated towards the left. I was just, I think part of it is from my cousins, part of it from my ideas, part of it. Like I was really, really, I was influenced a lot, and I had read a lot of the stuff in the Nablus library. Like I read everything by Fanon in the Nablus library because they had all Fanon's books, whatever was available, I read. But my cousins also really influenced me too. And so this is like where I was. And so when GUBS was going to start in the US, actually I was against it. I wanted Arab organization. I didn't want an Arab-Palestinian organization. I was always didn't really like Palestinians always saying we're alone. I thought that was defeatist, that was narrow. That was not even true. Stop saying that. People are with us. And so but then when there came the order from Abu Ammar or Yasser Arafat, and they started it, I went to, I think it was either in Ohio or Michigan, I don't remember. And I stayed very short time in school when I was organizing in the US because I dropped school. I quit after Sabra and Shatila. I was very active throughout the Israeli invasion of Lebanon, the siege of Beirut. And then Sabra and Shatila did it for me. I'm like, nobody should go to school. And I think that was a mistake. I should have gotten the education, because I was there. And I think of it, it upset my parents crazily. They boycotted me for a very long time. And I boycotted them too, because I did not agree with them. But I think that it was really a big mistake because here I am. I'm getting the money, I'm getting the education, and I thought it was a very entitled bourgeois thing to do that I just don't want to study. Finish the education or let somebody else take your money and study. So I thought this was very, very infantile act. And what really stopped me was one of the mentors, the elders that, I guess at that time we used to listen mentors, and when they were advising us, we followed what they were telling us. They really had an impact in mentoring us, making us also who we are. And I said, I want to go fight in Beirut. And he said to me, what skills do you have? And I said, I don't know, give me anything I want. He said, do you know how to fight? I said, no, I never held a gun in my life. And actually, I did hold a gun that somebody, uh, Jordanian soldier died on the top of our building. He fought in 1967, and my dad told me, go get the gun because we want to go bury him. Throw it in the big Midan where Israel announced they were going to collect. So we weren't going to go give them the guns, but we threw it in a big place. So that's the only one I did. But anyway, and then my comrade said to me, so do you know how to take care of injured? I said, no. He said, so what are you going to do there? You want to go, but do they have any use for you? And I said, no. He said, well, the fighters are going to trip over you. You're going to delay them from work.
You're going to be a liability.
And of course, I was really hurt and offended.
Yeah.
But I really thought about it, and he was right. He said, look, you're right. You speak English really well. You've read a lot and so on. Why don't you stay here and do this? Organize, work with other people and so on. And I listened. I obeyed, and I'm glad I did it instead of just quit school and just go around gallivant around the world. And but that was a mistake for me to quit. And they tried to convince me, but I was so stubborn. And this is one of the things that, that's it. If I stick with something that I mellowed with the years, but still. So I joined GUBS until I got out of school. And I got out of school, I started organizing. I became part of the Committee for a Democratic Palestine, which was a group all over the US and Canada, organizing for different Palestine, for justice in Palestine and around the world, among Palestinians, for society, for liberation, for all of Palestine, that not two states, not with Zionism and so on, and Marxists. And so that's finally I found the politics and the group and feminist, and so that's where I felt that politically I belong, and so I continued supporting GUBS and so on. They will invite me to go speak at different places, because I knew during the Intifada of the Stones, I used to go speak 3-4 times a day in different universities. And so, and then we started the Union of Palestinian Women's Association in 1983, and there were some, like in San Francisco, they already had with Maha Khouri and Ode, and a few women already started earlier in 79, because there was no organizations for women. And so, but in 1978, also Yasser Arafat issued a resolution and this why 1978, because the PLO was split from 1973 when the Palestine National Council, under the leadership of Yasser Arafat, came up with a political decision, the 10-point plan, to accept a state on any piece of Palestine is liberated, which was the beginning of the acknowledgement of the two-state solution. So half of the PLO split, got out and created the Rejectionist Front under the leadership of George Habash, and it was created in Baghdad, in Iraq, with all the parties in the whole Arab. The PLO came together in 1978 after Sadat went to Jerusalem and had beginning a peace plan with Menachem Begin under the tutelage of Jimmy Carter. So for the Palestinians, it was time to come back together and realize that all of these are basically mirage. And so they had the Palestinian National Council in Tripoli, Lebanon, and unified. So now the Palestinians we really need to have more institutions everywhere. So they made the decision that we need mass institutions everywhere, and they made a decision for the US. So GUBS and the General Union of Palestinian Women are mass institutions of the PLO, and real, very active. GUBS played a very, very important role in the lives of most Palestinian leaders, scholarships. My former student, current colleague Salim Shhade, wrote a brilliant thesis about it at UCLA. I mean, there isn't a lot, but it's incredible. The people that tell you the stories of what they done, my experiences in the Soviet Union with people. Mustafa Barghouti studied in the Soviet Union. I mean, there are a lot of people I actually knew from there. I met a lot of the people from the Israeli Communist Party who are like leaders and so on in Leningrad. This is Tawfiq Zayyad used to come and speak there. It was a very, very amazing learning, period.
I mean, I hope it's clear to folks why I wanted Rabab on the show and why I wanted to go here with you. Because for me, I mean, I could listen to you all day specifically for this reason, but here's why analytically too, right? Like the stories speak to my soul, and I can't tell you how happy I get. And you and I have had these conversations, right, in other situations, but there's a way in which settler colonial logics and systems of violence dislodge us from our own histories and literally implant an amnesia in us. Like you're talking about the 1970s and 80s and with such fervor and commitment and an internationalist struggle that was committed to a strategy and understood. And in this moment, we hear so much, and what worries me is that there's always a way in which people are made to feel like they have to start from scratch all over again. Like every moment is a moment in which we have to start the struggle all over again. And that feels so intimidating. But part of this history you're bringing to us, and that you are a living, breathing piece of this, that there's a history that's already there. The fabric is there. Yes, there may be times in which it, before it comes up, there's an insurgency that happens in particular moments, like in any movement. But for us to really remember, and maybe this is part of the psychic militancy, is that we're not far from those structures. That these were in the United States. There was a Palestinian struggle in the United States. There was an Arab struggle in the United States. There was this in Lebanon. You were saying that, and like, I suppose what I'm wondering from you is like, what's your sense of why it's important to continuously go back and be like, these things exist and we were a part of them? I'd love to hear from you how this has helped also ground you, particularly in a moment like today.
Yeah. I mean, in the Soviet Union, actually, the first other students I learned were from Venezuela. They were, and I didn't, by the way, go there on a scholarship from one of the leftist parties. I got scholarship from the Jordanian, high education ministry, because I got very high grade in high school. So they gave me a scholarship. So I went there because I wanted to see a different country and so on. But this was my first friend was from Venezuela. She was, the fencing. She was a fencing chap from Venezuela. Alba Marquez Rene. I still remember her name. Okay, so I learned. I met people. I learned about other struggles. That was the place I learned about it. There are certain things that happen in our lives that give us these opportunities. But with the women's, in the Soviet Union, in Palestine, we always celebrate International Women's Day. Always. So when I was in New York, this is my experience with my friends here. I was searching for places we can collaborate with and have International Women's Day. And I went to all the leftist groups I already had met when I moved to New York. And they were always asking me, are you a feminist or a nationalist? And many people know this story. And I said to them, what do you mean? We don't separate. It's all, the struggle is the same. And so, but anyway, none of them, including the Communist Party of the United States. I got pissed, and I went and told my feminist siblings, sisters, friends, and so on. And we decided to start our own association. So we started in New York, an association in Brooklyn, and one in Manhattan. And we decided to do a big celebration for International Women's Day. And we did one in Brooklyn, in Whitney Catering, which is very famous, 500 women we had. And we had one in Manhattan. We had 24 speakers from 24 countries, and music and speaking and so on, 500 people. And we started in New York, the Palestinian Women's Association. And they were starting in all over because the General Union of Palestine Students, US branch, did not succeed. Part of it is because Arafat could not find enough women to start the union on his behalf, so he stopped it. But we started because we wanted to have a union for women. And so So, and it was, I mean, I would love to just sit and talk about it because it was an amazing, amazing, amazing experience. Not today. It's a book, okay? So it was really great. And I mean, the stuff we did, the activities, the collaboration, and now the thing is like what's really makes me happy is like I have students who come to my classes, their mothers and their grandmothers were in the union. And I didn't know everybody in San Francisco, but they're like, oh my God, Im'ode, oh my God, this one, this, that. They, all they were kind of my siblings in the union. We go meet in different conventions and so on. And we did so much, we impacted so much. The generation, and it's much harder to organize in exile than to organize back home. Back home are so much more advanced than us, and I'm kind of like a lot gravitated towards back home. So my compass a lot always in Palestine. I mean, I do definitely I connect here and so on, but that's where sort of like if I'm trying to figure out where things are more correct and so on, Palestine is really my reference more than it is here. I think sometimes people here get a lot affected by U.S. individualism and a lot of esoteric things and so. I mean, this is a settler colonial regime that is par excellence.
Yeah,
So
it lives inside of us. It internalized.
Yeah. Which is in Palestine. There is a little of it with Palestinians in the 48 because, Fanon, the contact with the Israeli society, but it's not that much, by the way. It's not that much. But the majority do not interact with the colonizers. They don't necessarily get affected that much with the colonizers. So we are part of the Arab world. We're part of the third world, So there is for me, that's where my orientation is. That's where my connections are. So it really flourished. It stopped. And when you're talking about the let's say the inheritance of the revolutionary spirits, anti-colonial and so on, I mean, Oslo destroyed a lot of Palestinian work. Oslo happened, the solidarity movement, which was amazing, working really, really well, and had a lot of reasons why the solidarity movement grew so much and did all of this stuff. Everybody will say, "Oh, there is peace." I'm like, "What? There is no peace. There is nothing that happened." But people stopped even paying attention. For the Union of Palestinian Women's Association, a lot of women and their families went back home because they thought, even if they didn't believe in Oslo or something, maybe this is the time for them to take their children and grow them up in Palestine. I mean, of course, all the dreams fell apart. But then there is no possibility to do any work. A lot of people got demoralized. The Palestinian Authority played a very big role in evacuating the Palestinian struggle from its resilient resistance, defiance, spirit, and the rejection of colonialism, rejection of Israel, rejection of this trying to subject our spirit of who we are. There it became very, very difficult. So there is, like you say, let's say from 1993 all the way to maybe the Aqsa Intifada, 2000, 2001, 2002, nothing. There is no inheritance, no passing over, no passing down to generations of what's going on. No organization. We had an organization for youth, Palestinian youth, Palestinian American youth. We had women. We had students. We had everything. There was like everywhere. Wherever you go, there is a connection. Palestine Solidarity Committee. We were in touch with everybody. It's just like a lot of the stuff collapsed. A lot of people became demoralized. So we did a lot, and we leave the impact, and the impact is the young people we see. And like I was at JVP conference in National Convention in Texas, and this young man comes to me and he says, "You don't know me, but you know my mama." And she's not even somebody I met in UPWA. I met her later on when I was in Michigan at the Center for Arab American Studies. I mean, wow. It's this passing on. All of these young people, I mean, they're all, of course, they learn their own tradition, their own leadership, their own history, but there is this, it's still going on. I mean, this is the whole question of the Palestinian life continues. So, yeah, I think that for me, it was it was organizing, and in that also it was a very big struggle, big struggle with our communities, more less with our communities and more with the solidarity movement and the so-called peace movement and so on, about really having Palestinians being able to tell their stories, their narratives, being able to reject Zionism, not having every single time you have to speak, they have to attack an Israeli or a Jewish. They not even anti-Zionist. I mean, anti-Zionist is not a problem. It's the same struggle. We're in the same struggle. But always favoring white people, and then not rejecting black folks, rejecting indigenous folks, rejecting our communities. I mean, this is kind of like telling you what would be better to say and what would be not. And they were telling me like, oh, it would really, don't lose your accent because that's authentic. If I lose my accent, I become, wallahi, honestly, I mean, there is so much stuff.
You can't make this shit up.
And it's in kindness. It's in kindness. It's not something that was told to me like something that's nasty. It's like in kindness. You would be better authentically if you. I mean, there is so much stuff that has happened in that period, but you know, we did create a lot, and we can talk forever about UPWA and the various things that we did. The whole starting the anti-apartheid Palestinian anti-apartheid movement in 1985. In 1985, you know, it was through Palestine Solidarity Committee, and I organized it with Professor Fred Dube from the ANC, 26 city tour. I mean, it was just incredible all over, and with the ANC. And we did so much, and there was so much reception from the Black movement, from the Vietnamese, the El Salvador, FDR, FMLN, the Sandinista, the Cuban, all of the movements from around the world. It was reflected in the solidarity with the November 29th coalition that became then the Palestine Solidarity Committee. It was much harder to deal with the peace movement and with many of the Jewish groups, Jewish peace groups, like the New Jewish Agenda, driving us crazy in meeting with them and so on. And that's another discussion. And it has to do, unlike the South African anti-apartheid movement, nobody was advocating for apartheid. Nobody was promoting. While in Palestine movement, there are people advocating for Zionism. That's another discussion. But these were also really hard because some of our own folks were saying, go work with them. There were like our pets being written by Bassam Abu Sharif, and I don't remember who. All of this stuff that we're all together, we're not all together because we don't suffer the same way, and we are not all wanting the same way. And this is all a colonial collaboration, and we cannot participate in it. And people like, there was a lot of pressure, don't say it, go participate. And some of us didn't want to participate. And so that, in this sense, that also was being blamed that we are breaking down the things that were better for our people. So
you're coming on too strong or whatever. But, you know, two things. This goes back to what you were saying about the house you were reared in, about no compromise, and what it means to truly commit to no compromise, and the ways in which people, you had said, you know, people get put off by this because it demands something of them. And back to your point, fast forward back to what you were saying about the university, when somebody's like, oh, Zionists are welcome. These positions, when we say these things, that no, Zionists are not welcome, because it is akin to saying an apartheid, you know, regime would be welcome, or KKK, or these are not pedantic positions. They're positions of clarity. They're positions of political clarity. They're positions of political commitments. They're positions that remind us all of the ways in which settler colonial logics and violence try to insinuate themselves as though they're common sense or have merit on the surface. And then we're in a position where we're like arguing these points rather than, where did Palestine go? Where did our fight go? But there's something else also, that as you describe all of this incredible work that's being done, and I want that book, Rabab. We have to have this book about this. I'm thinking about the ways in which political education is a through line for you, whether the way you were reared, from the people who taught you, through your studying, like formal studies, back to these political organizations, that political education is central to that. So to me, when I hear that, I'm like, no wonder then later in this part of your career, you educating others or using your platform to continue this consciousness raising.
Yeah.
And really, I think about insurgent pedagogies, right? And I think for me, when I think about Ahmed, and maybe you can tell people more about what that is and what your vision has been, how you got here. But right now, we're in a moment in which critical ethnic studies is under attack. And when I look at what you have done, you've had a model for this for, decades, about how you think about where Palestine studies fits. We're seeing now Palestine studies things pop up here and there and everywhere, which on the one hand is important. On the other hand, there's always the question of co-optation, and much in the same ways that you're saying right now. The Oslo Accords did a sort of co-optation and diffused actual political action, revolutionary political action, through the promise of coming in and being, sitting on the table. We can both understand the importance of having Palestine present in places and also be on guard and recognize the mistakes of the past. But I really want folks to hear from you, because you've had this model for a long time, and there's ways in which, you've had open classrooms, you've had so many things that I've experienced and been a part of too. You've been very generous in inviting me to be a part of this, but maybe we can sort of go there in a continuation, not as a like a stopping point. It feels like a through line that has continued across your lifespan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it definitely it has to do with my political organizing, with my growth as a political organizer, and then becoming an organic intellectual, right? And so one of the things is that I've always heard about people who were involved in political organizations learning, teaching, and there was distinction always between centrist organizations and leftist organizations. That leftist organizations get involved in studying. They always have study groups, they read, they understand. And whenever I used to hear them at Birzeit or go to panels in Nablus or wherever, they seemed like much more engaged, much more knowledgeable, much more. They never they didn't use insults, individual insults. They didn't, personalize it. They all went afterwards. They fight with each other. Then they all went have tea, have coffee, talk with each other, and then halas, move on. And so I always and I liked reading, I liked studying, so I gravitated, and also politically and about women and so on, they were better. So for me, that was not that we all need to struggle more against gender hierarchy and so on, but it was definitely much better. When I became much more organized, like in the U.S. here with the Committee for Democratic Palestine, there is always education, and I was one of my responsibilities was to hold study groups for younger Palestinian American women. So I used to hold once a week study groups for them, going through studies, the New York Times, for example, the newspaper, and books to learn about the history of Palestine, and also learn about part of the meeting would be what do you call it, political analysis, what's going on in that week, and what's going on in terms of reading the history, always. So you always have to do that. Palestine Solidarity Committee, every meeting, before we start talking about what we're going to do, we do political analysis. So and then we decide, okay, so this is what our action is going to be. We're going to do a demonstration. Somebody says, okay, we're going to do a candlelight vigil. And some people who are more radical are like, some candlelight. No. I mean, and we discuss it. We have a discussion. I was in charge of the Palestine Solidarity Committee, so I could enforce the whole question of the analysis. We need to discuss, to say what's going on. How do we deal with different things? So, people who are in solidarity can't come and say Palestine Solidarity Committee should condemn this or that about the Palestinian leadership when Palestinians can deal with it. Okay, it's okay. It's fine sometimes to be silent. It's okay. You don't have to speak about everything. So and I'm still in touch with all the people who were involved, and some of them are leaders in universities and so on. It was just really, it was amazing, group of people. And so I've always, and I thought always really, you cannot do anything without learning what to do. And actually, this is happening all over the world. It's not just happening with us. And when people, and it irritates me when people get up and say, I am an academic, but Why you're apologizing? If you didn't want to be an academic, don't go to school. Why? Like why are you apologizing? You're an academic. You actually have a very important resource. Use it. Like if your life in the daytime and at nighttime do not coincide with each other, something is wrong. You are sitting on a resource. Why do you keep them separate?
Make free space a contested space.
Yeah. I mean, you're teaching. Use that. I mean, what are you teaching? Only Aristotle? I mean, you really need to teach even Aristotle. You can use that as well. In any case, so I'm always thought about it that way, and I always thought about how do you engage. Like in Palestine, it's not really a problem. Birzeit demands from the students 200 hours of community service, real community service. Nablus, before the university, they always had the voluntary. I remember that it is not at my time, but my brother, my sister, they always used to go clean the streets, do everything, especially when Israel started pressuring municipalities that were elected on national slate. Remember the Israel tried to impose, it failed with the village gate, the village league, and then they tried to, they wanted to say elections. So elections, everybody on payroll slates won. And so they started cutting the electricity and so on. So people said, to hell with you, we're going to also do our work. And they did it. It was all the young kids always doing it in لجان العمل التطوعي, voluntary work committee, and they're still doing it. And so there are people doing it all the time. So I saw that when I went to teach in Egypt, they had some of this stuff, but the students I had who are lovely and they wanted to learn did not know anything, and mostly are elite, Majority of them did not know anything about the life outside, because the structure of the university and the mission of the university is done in such a way to make it that the students don't know. So, and I learned from some of my Egyptian colleagues that they'll take the students to the city, and I said, can we take them on the subway, on the underground? Like some of them, one student came to me and she said, can we follow with our car? I said, no, we can't go to the old city and then, you're like with your driver and so on.
Ya Allah.
Nobody's going to allow us to come in. But I mean, they were really, they were, I mean, there are some of them who were so known that some of them became the leaders of Tahrir Square, of the revolution and so on. So it's not everybody was like some of the professors, American professors say, oh, they're all airheads and so on. That's not true, actually.
Right.
So, but they really, I love them and they love me. I mean, I only came back to the US because my partner was in New York. It was a very long commute to Cairo. That's the only reason. Otherwise, I would have stayed because I love being in the Arab world and everything. There is no Hebrew science. It's all Arabic. I'm coming from under occupation. I mean, everything. It's the Arab world. It's so different, I really, really loved being there with faculty, with students, with the Arab world. It's just anyway. It happened. But in any case, so I thought, okay, I'm going to take my students on field trips. So this is one part of it, going outside. And one of the biggest ones we did was in the summer. It was my last summer, and I was showing them the film Frontiers of Dreams and Fears by May Masri, about the meeting of this kids from Shatila refugee camp in Beirut and the children of Dheisha camp in Bethlehem. And I'm going to stop and say that the leader, Khalid al-Saifi, had just died 4 days ago. He was released. He came from prison, second or third round of administrative detention, and 4 days later he died. And he was one of the people who established Ibda, the center where the kids learn dancing and singing, and also where they have the murals inside Ibda, that they have the paintings, and the paintings were painted with muralists from the US, specifically for anti-Zionist, feminist, Jewish muralists who went and painted with Palestinian women inside the paintings, including the woman who painted the women's center in San Francisco, and including Susan Green, who painted I.C. Silwan. I mean, this is like, and she also co-painted the mural in San Francisco State.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, this is like really because you couldn't paint outside during the Intifada of the Stones, so they painted with Al-Funun. In any case, so Khalid just passed away. But anyway, so that was the meeting, and I had seen it. I had gone to Beirut right after Israel was kicked out in 2000 to interview people in Shatila, relationship to my dissertation. And, I had gotten connection from Rosemary Sawyer and people in the camp and so on. And and then we came back and we went with these kids all the way to the south, to Bawabet Fatme, everywhere. And so I showed the film wasn't finished. They were still making it. And I showed it to my students, and I and them, we started crying, all of us. So after we finished, and they're like brilliant, these students, I said, do you want to go? And they said, oh, but we don't have time. I said, no, go get your tickets and get your visas, and I'll talk to the provost. Because some people in the AUC were incredible. The provost, amazing. So I said, let go get it. If you have money, they had money. The students, they're brilliant. Young women, they're all doing amazing work now. So they got the visas. So we sat in a hotel, but really cheap. In Hamra, we were only eating
to Lebanon, to make certain that people know they went to Beirut from Cairo.
In Beirut, we ate only manakish, and I had contacted them earlier, and they said okay, and the girls were like really great, wonderful. They didn't care what it was like, and I didn't care what it was like, and I had contacted people and said, we really need somebody to come talk to us about the political situation. I don't want to do it. I would like them, and they know more than me. We want Lebanese, we want Palestinians, we want to tell us what Lebanon, the civil war, about what happened in the siege of Beirut and so on. And they did. And like we met everybody. We met Rosemary Sawyer. We went to Shatila. We met with people. They told us the story about the massacre, everything, And then the students created this project called Cairo to the Camp. So every summer they go and they take students from Egypt. This was the first time Egyptian students go to any Arab world to do internship first. They always go to Europe and the US. And so they vet the students, make sure that they are ready, they are applicable to go to Beirut. If they are not, they don't allow them. If they're coming on with this is we're going to go teach them everything and so on, because the kids can teach them a lot, and so they continued doing it. They only stopped it when Tahrir Square, in 2011 when the Egyptian Revolution began, and so they're all now doing good.
Wow, it lasted a long time.
And that lasted for a long time. And when we went to Egypt in 2012. And we were there on the anniversary of the revolution. They made the meetings with us, with all people from the different parts of the revolution, to meet with them. I mean, it was just and so this was the whole thing about meeting with people, learning about them, having people in the class and so on was so incredible. The problem is that in other parts of the university is a bit rigid. You have to bring people into the classroom. So at NYU, I would take students. I had created an assignment that we will go to five neighborhoods every semester, 5 neighborhoods. So we'd go to the and connect them with museums. So we'll go to the Chinese of the Americans in the US, the Museum of El Barrio, and the Schomburg Library in Harlem. We'll go to different, and we ask somebody to invite us to the neighborhood. So we're not going by ourselves, like enter whichever we want. And we go, and they'll explain to us about the neighborhood and so on. We go there, talk with people, understand, and so on. And the students come and write about them. We discuss what does it mean. How do you do research that's ethical? How do you deal with people? How do you own people, the research, and so on. And then when I came to San Francisco, there is a lot of that already. People are doing it. So I thought, okay, I really would like to bring people into my class. So I started working with a scholar, an activist actually, who was working at San Francisco State, who does Pride Month. So we can bring students from Pride Month to the university, and university to the Pride Month, the activist. And he was amazing. He actually was one of the people who went to Palestine on the U.S. prisoner support delegation. He passed away, but he was a union member. And he was one of the people who actually made it possible for the union to start supporting Palestine at San Francisco State, which was not supportive before that. He passed away 2 years after we returned. And
what
then
was his name? What was his name?
Michael Ritter. Yes, he should be honored. He was amazing. He was amazing in Palestine too. When we met with all the trade unionists as well in Palestine, and also I started. And then when SFSU stopped funding the program, I continued. I said to Michael, let's continue. We have a lot of people there. Let's continue. So every semester we will do it. And there were some people from actually faculty, Arab faculty, saying, "Oh, why would you want to do it? Don't you think that's going to affect the funding of Ahmed?" I said, "I don't really think so. And if people are going to be saying that, we don't want that funding under something. Yani, Allah sahal alayhi." And we did it also with everything else. We invited all the elders who participated in the 68th strike to come and talk to the students. Remember, we had Ahmed, we started in 2007, 2008 was the 40th anniversary of the strike. Many of the elders were still, the veterans were still alive. I remember I was sitting, and I joined the organizing. Of course, I was like, there is no way I'm going to miss it. I joined, I volunteered to organize and work on it. And so we organized, Ahmed, we invited Yuri Kochiyama, the very well-known Japanese activist in whose arms Malcolm X died. Okay, and she came and spoke with me and my partner Jaime at one of the main panels in that. All of them, who were organizing. So I'm kind of like a history. I'm sitting there seeing history. I mean, like I'm seeing Palestinian, heroes and so on. It's just, to me, it's incredible. And one of the times we were sitting there, this woman comes in hijab. It was Ramadan, and she said, "Where is the Palestinian sister?" And so I raised my hand. She said that afterwards she comes to me and she said, "Do you know Layla Khaled?" And I said, "Yes, I know." And she said, "Oh, I named my daughter Layla." All of them blew. And I said, she said, "Oh, I'm looking for her book." I said, "I have it. I actually teach it in the class. Would you like it?" And so I said, Damira Ahmad, her name was Charlotta Simmons, when she was in the Panthers. So this is where we actually start. Like, it turns out a lot of people in the strike were in the band, knew a lot about the strike, but I didn't know a lot. I mean, so I was learning. And of course, they were very much supportive of Palestine because they wanted, in 1968, when they won the strike, they wanted the program on Palestine and they wanted the program on indigeneity. That's what, and the university basically tricked them, created the College of Ethnic Studies. They wanted the School of Third World Studies. So ethnic studies, a radical edge in ethnic studies started in 68. Before it was ethnic and race relations and sociology. And that's how I understood it. They are the ones who had this kind of politics. So every time we have something, we invite them to come and speak to the students. And the students are all like, I mean, not only them, me too. Wow, they're telling us all these stories. They're telling when they have Donny Glover go and protest, when they all were arrested. And this is real life stories. And you imagine young students learning about this. And so it was really beneficial, and then expanded it more. So students learn from what I call living archives. The elders who are living archives, they're passing on, but also with scholars. So also emphasize the point that the knowledge doesn't only come from scholarship and PhDs. There is indigenous knowledge, comes from the community. People understand. You idealize people who have passed, but also you don't only put them on a pedestal. You also learn about what they learned, what they can pass on. Discussions between each other. Young people always are like rushing because they want to accomplish yesterday what they haven't what they haven't accomplished. And so sometimes you want to just say, okay, this is what we did, this is what we did wrong, and so on. And they're sitting having this conversation. That's kind of a respect with things, learning the collectivity. One of the hardest things is learning.
And engaging people as comrades, right? Yeah. That this is our struggle, is to engage people as comrades.
And also understanding there is no foreign and domestic, which is like really irritates me hell out of me. Learning with each other. Now, after COVID started, there was it's a disaster for the world, but for us, that at that semester already San Francisco State refused to allow us rooms. They canceled rooms in the library. We had, actually it was around this time in February, we had reserved the room to do a joint event with the Asian American Studies Department around the Day of Remembrance. This is when every year it's about the Second World War concentration camps for the Japanese. And we had been invited with people, the descendants of people who were incarcerated in Crystal City in Texas. So it was only three of us, my partner, I, and Salim, at the time my student. And so we went and visited and learned everything and so on. So we wanted to give a report back that year. And the library canceled our room and gave it to an outside university thing. So we didn't have it. We had it in a class of my colleague, the chair of Asian American Studies. We had another one about Afro-Palestinians in another colleague's class, Jamal Dajani, who since then SFSU refused to hire him anymore. So we don't have any lecturers, right? I mean, like all of this insult to the community. And so the COVID, then we were able to do classes online, use our classrooms, open classrooms. So we started one, I was supposed to go speak in a colleague's class, Dr. Tomomi Kikinakawa. When COVID happened, everybody canceled their classes, everything they had. But Tomomi and I thought, oh, let's do it. So we did two of them that were very, very successful. And then we started, and then George Floyd was killed that summer. So we started doing in Ahmed classes every week or every 3 days or so, open classrooms, inviting everybody from the world. And we continued open classroom to the point some of the open classrooms had 15,000 people attend. No money, we have no money, and we don't believe in paying for it, you know. They call them, what is it, organic views. And so we have people from all over the world, and this is kind of the essence of open classrooms, that we tell people what the material is. We invite the scholars. We have people from Palestine, from Lebanon, from South Africa. We have people from Korea, people from, the other day we had people from Cuba. From everywhere, we bring them together to discuss a particular topic. Everybody is available, and people are recorded. They are online now. We used to put them on Facebook. They shut down our page for a year. We kept fighting for it until we got it back with the help of Palestinian social media groups. For a year, fought, and we got it back. So open classrooms are actually really, really amazing. It's like the memory, the discussion, you know, the archival material, the questions that we have, and then we continue in the classroom as well. So it's combination of, you know, not making an academic program like Ahmed, and just this is sort of part of like Teaching Palestine series, pedagogical practice, and the indivisibility of justice. With Ahmed itself is that also connecting with Palestinian universities. This is part of not allowing them to be isolated. And of course, the Zionists are freaking out about it because we applied to have study abroad in Palestine. They shut us down, the university, twice. One time right before the day when students already got the visas and vaccination and everything else, they came up with a technical the second time as well. But also we had the delegations go to Palestine, connect with Palestinians, and come back. We have the open classrooms for sure. Getting institutionalizing things in the curriculum, but also having the classroom being an exciting place, especially when students don't have time. They have to work multiple jobs. They have they have family members they need to take care of. There's a lot of problem. The university is raising the tuition, and they actually do not bring the kind of speakers that expensive universities can. So we provide that to the students, and our speakers do not ask for honorarium or something because they understand where we're coming from. So we provide this to the students, and the students feel that they are part of the world, and they are interacting, and they become, their horizon is so much risen and so much expansive, more than, you know, like equal to any other like Ivy League university or something.
Absolutely.
And the university doesn't like that because it is not numbers of how many students attended. It's all numbers.
It's also not owning the territory of the university, right? I think this is part of what it matches in the sort of like defying borders, if we live in a world of expansive connectivity, how do we use that towards our political commitments? And to say, okay, we defy borders, we also refuse the consolidation of knowledge in the global north. We are always engaging. What I love about what you're saying is we're always engaging in conversations and debates and organizing that are already happening. This is not about inventing something. It's about being in mutual, engaging projects of knowledge production with spaces and people who are otherwise completely ejected out of the frame or never included in these conversations, but also saying, hey, we're inviting you here because we also know this is an ongoing thing for you. This is not just when we come online, it becomes a thing. I've been part of these, both teaching Palestine delegations, but also in your open classrooms. And I think that's part of it. It is just feeling like there isn't a way in which this knowledge can be captured, despite their best attempts to capture, to contain, to eject. And maybe this is sort of the last thing we can do.
To incarcerate.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is, maybe we can end on this, is like you had a open classroom with the comrade Layla Khalid. And this is the thing that like broke the machine, right? If I remember correctly, Zoom kind of broke your link, and this is part of the Facebook thing. And like there were so many systems that clamped down so quickly to just not allow her to speak or exist, as though she doesn't already exist in the world, whether or not she shows up in these spaces. But you defied it anyway. And I'm wondering if that would be a good place to sort of end on.
I really wanted, well, first of all, because Tumomi and I already had these classes in the spring. And I suggested to Tumomi if they would like to show the film, Layla Khalid Hijacker. I like parts of the film and I hate parts of the film. And when I asked Tumomi if they would show it in the class, Tumomi showed it and I critiqued it with the students. But it also shows a lot of parts of Layla. And so when we were going to do it again in the fall, I asked Tumomi, how about we bring her? And Tumomi, yes, of course. Yeah, so we brought her. We brought Ronnie Kasril from South Africa, Seiko Odenga, who passed away, Laura Whitehorn, who's the Jewish anti-Zionist who spent 14 years in prison, Rula Abu Daho from Birzeit University, and I think, this is it. And the two of us, and Layla, in conversation with Layla. So they are not actually like lesser in experience than Layla. They have similar experiences. And Layla is very humble. People actually don't know. She is very humble. She's very knowledgeable. She has a brains like crazy, and she's like such a nice person. And I think this also was irritated to the Zionists. They did not want anybody to see 76-year-old grandmother who had just got out of breast cancer surgery coming to speak to everybody like normal. Because they're boxing her in the satanic image of a terrorist who hijacked planes, and they want to lock her there so they can attach all these images to her and not allow her to be seen as a human being talking. And she's very charming. Layla is like, everybody who meets her would love her. She is, okay. And I wanted the student to just talk to her. And I thought anybody who wants to talk about the hijacking can, but I wanted also her to talk about her role as a teacher, her role as a feminist. What does she do? She's also actually quite funny. So I thought this would be really great. Talk about this. And also I thought maybe Ronnie will jump at her and talk about the whole question of armed struggle and so on, because he has his own view from South Africa. Everybody will say something, and Laura had met her in Amman, and I thought this would be really incredible discussion. And all of a sudden, everybody flipped. The university president issued 3 statements. I abhor violence against civilians. And this is supposed to be a feminist. She is a feminist. She never ever got in touch with me and Tumomi and say, come, let's talk about it. What are you doing? Are you crazy or something? Nobody. She went and met with tons of Zionists, Hillel, in and out all the time, Jewish Community Relations Center, all the people who are raising funds for Zionists and so on. Not a single time about us. Her provost went and talked about us, are controversial, told us we will be arrested. And I'm talking with all of them, Layla and all of them, and say, this and that. No, don't worry, we support you. Just relax. You don't owe us anything. Don't apologize to us. All of them are encouraging us, and then the provost is threatening us with prison that we are accused of material support for terrorism. When we actually talked to the lawyers, and everybody said, that's not true. Don't listen to them. Did you give her money? We started laughing. It's like, we're going to give honorarium to Layla Khalid.
From where?
She will hang up on us. She will like, are you crazy? You're insulting me. So it's there is all of this stupid stuff they're asking us. It's just, this shows you how distant. They don't understand. And they don't try to understand. You want to, we want to be the university of the world. I got them an MOU with An-Najah National University. An-Najah is top university of the world. Birzeit is known more, but An-Najah is the top university. The only one SFSU has with any Arab or Muslim site and so on. Until now, they don't know anything. They know nothing, zero. They haven't learned anything. We've been having Ahmed since 2007. You think they learned something? Nada. They don't even know the name of the program. This is the university that hosts this program. And they then, the one congressman once asked the Attorney General to investigate us. All the Zionist organization attacked us of everything like that. And they were, and then Zoom shut us down. We started Google and Facebook, they shut us down. Facebook took, and then the whole thing, the trashing, the writing about us, and the university would not even give us a space. And we said to them, if a pipe breaks, you give people another venue. How come you're not giving us another venue? Because the university, including the university, quote unquote, feminist leaders, also had the same stereotype, Orientalist, Islamophobic, racist, colonial, feminist, so-called stereotype of Arab Muslim Palestinians. You'd think, I would really wish that they maybe saw the film or actually picked up a book about her to understand anything. So they know that this quote-unquote controversial story that got the whole world talking about it, you learn something about it. When we hear something, even about Netanyahu, we go pick up a book and read it. Hopefully don't pay for it, but we go and read it. We read it because we want to understand what is the hoopla about.
They're constitutively misattuned from this ability.
we want to have critical knowledge. We want to have, they don't, and this is really what infuriates me, is that shouldn't people learn? And this is where the whole, this lack of knowledge, lack of open minds, when you say open minds, where is the open mind? How are you going to learn to teach people when you yourself don't learn? So, we continue the conversation and so on, but this is something we will never stop. We are educators. Our job is educating. If we are going to incarcerate our minds, if we are going to incarcerate our knowledge, our classrooms, what good are we? We should just go around, do whatever we want and make money, not be at a university. That's not our business.
Wow. You know why I love you. Is there anything, I feel like we could end there, and what a high note to end on, but I want to give you the last word. If there's anything you want to leave our listeners with, we will include these links in the episode notes so that folks can tune in, follow your work, be able to see these archives. But anything else you would like? I
just want to say something to people, because now the whole Palestinian movement is focusing on making the cause of the prisoners the main and important cause. And one of the things that they put out, especially for people outside in the world, is to gather 1 million signatures by April 17th, the International Day of Solidarity with Palestinian Prisoners. And it's actually a petition sent to the International Committee of the Red Cross. It's not directed to the UN or Trump or anybody like that, to stop the torture and the imprisonment of Palestinian and Lebanese prisoners. And we would like, it's different languages, we would like people to gather the signatures. We would like to have the 1 million people for the Palestinian and Lebanese prisoners. We would like people to have panels, discussions, everything they can about Palestinian prisoners. The Coalition for Higher Education this year, April 17th, will be focusing on Palestinian prisoners and connecting it with ICE, that also kidnaps students from universities, as Israel does, and talk about the necessity for abolition to stop all prisons and express solidarity. This is a very big project of us teaching Palestine. And we are coming together, the delegation that 10 years ago was the first one that went to Palestine. We're coming together and talk about what we did, and we're connecting with Palestinian prisoners themselves. And we would like everybody, anywhere in the world, to actually really be a big part of this campaign. Because also, if people don't know, Israel now has finished the first reading and approval in the Knesset of executing Palestinian prisoners. They already talking about the shape of how to do it, the death penalty. And so we really want people to, support in any case, but this is really, really important to do that. And we will share more, and you will share more too, Lara.
Thank you so much. We'll share the link. I encourage folks to sign it, to follow the work, to show up for our comrades who are incarcerated and who have actually taken the biggest hit. Talk about sacrifices. So thank you, Rabab. Thank you so much. شكرا
Thank you.
كثير على كل شغلك. يعطيكي ألف عافية وشكرا
Thank you,
كثير.
man.